Hi, everyone. I am Carly Sills. I am the AVP here at Auritas. I am joined today by our CTO, Mani Ramaswamy, and welcome back to another episode of Auritas Insight. Mani, do you want to give a quick introduction to everyone?
Sure. Thank you, Carly. Good morning, everyone. This is Mani Ramaswamy, CTO at Auritas. We have an exciting podcast planned today. So I can't wait to get into it, Carly.
Wonderful. Yeah, so today we're talking about ESG reporting. As I know, carbon footprint is on the forefront of everyone's mind and truly everyone's website. So we're really looking at ESG reporting and how organizations can turn their operational data that they already have into really meaningful ESG intelligence. So what we've been seeing in the marketplace is it's really become a major focus over the last few years. But a lot of our clients are still trying to figure out how to create a solution built on this. So, Mani, I ask you the question, what are you seeing in the ESG landscape and why has this become such a main focus for a lot of businesses?
Yeah, gosh, sustainability is such a huge topic, Carly, and depending on the size of the organization, it can be so large, right? Large companies, tech companies, today are, increasingly becoming very sustainability aware and are actually committing to their corporate responsibility towards a greener future. We have to save this planet, right? And we're doing our bit at Auritas, right? So we've done some thinking, we have something meaningful to offer, which is why we're doing this podcast today. So coming back to your question though, right? Sustainability reporting, which is a part of the overall sustainability initiatives, which every publicly audited company has to go through. It's part of their annual disclosures. So clearly, it's gone from being voluntary to mandatory, right? But the truth is, only to 20 to 30% of the companies, that are facing this mandate are able to actually meet this, right? And meet this with ease, right? It as of today, even though they're meeting them, it's not complete. So, and they're facing regulatory pressure, they're facing internal stakeholder pressure to make this because this becomes investor grade, disclosures from the company to attract investors, be seen as a forward-thinking company, etc.
So you mentioned regulations and everything being in a regulated fashion. I just want to double click on that for a second. With these new regulations and reporting requirements, when they're looking at to comply with ESG, where are these organizations actually expected to get the data that they need?
Yeah, great question. And the first thing is this competing regulations, right? If you look at the world, everybody is pursuing the same goal, but in slightly different ways, and they're having to adhere to certain local rules, if you may, right? There's CSRD as an overarching structure. EU has its commitment. In the US, we seem to be retracting from the commitment, but it still exists by selected states, right? So there's three types of categories, if you may, for ESG reporting. There's It covers scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions, right? Scope 1 and scope 2 really cover direct emissions, the carbon footprint that I as a corporate is generating, right? Because of my operations, because I'm producing something, I run a manufacturing facility, right? I have corporate offices that consumes air conditioning, electricity, I run data centers, etc. Scope 3 is what gets delivered to me by the supply chain. So it may not be within my immediate purview to measure that, but scope 1 and scope 2 are because I'm consuming these, right? I'm consuming the electricity, I'm producing the waste, I'm consuming gas, I'm consuming the refrigerants. And there has to be a way to measure all of this. And guess what? It's all available in my finance operation.
That's really interesting, and I'm glad that we did an overview of what we're kind of looking for and how a company would be tracking emissions and, of course, their overall carbon footprint. If you were to say, as we so often speak about process before technology, because we will get to the solution that solves for this all, now that we've identified, the data that's behind this that kind of strengthens the whole solution, how would you suggest from a process standpoint that we turn that operational data into kind of an optimized reporting standpoint? If you could walk everyone through and give some insight on what that process would look like in order to remain compliant.
Absolutely. And Carly, great question. I'll go back to where this all started, if I may, right? When customers started to speak to us, and you know this, right? We have some of our very large tech customers come speak to us. They were struggling to meet these mandates, right? And guess what? The source of the information was right under our nose. We implement, as you know, AP optimization through some of the OpenText and SAP tools for our customers. And we process invoices. A subset of these invoices contain exactly the information that we're seeking, right? Businesses here, as you know, as do I, get bills which contains electricity, gas consumption, and more, right? By different time of day consumption, peak, non-peak, how much of that power is green versus based on fossil fuels. It's all there, right? And we quickly hit on the idea that that's the source of truth. We've already processed these invoices. It's a record in our finance organization. The invoices have already been processed, right? Why not leverage that source of truth, and why not leverage the same platform that we use to process AP invoices, which is OpenText embedded within SAP? Okay, so we simply we essentially conceived an idea where we would identify such invoices through certain rules. We would reprocess them through the OpenText solution, right? The OpenText OCR solution. And we can talk a little bit more about the strength of the solution, but I want to keep it somewhat high level at this point, right? We simply OCR the solution, extract all of the carbon footprint data in whatever category. There's about 12 odd categories of carbon footprint data that we need to capture, right? And not everything may be applicable to every customer. But being an ERP embedded process gives us a unique advantage. We take the extracted information and we merge it with the enterprise, I'll call it structure, be that plants, be that buildings, be that, which is, be that a manufacturing site, be that a corporate location, right? And these things represent elements within our enterprise structure for any corporate organization, right? And being able to also associate it to cost elements, meaning certain GL accounts, etc. Doing that is very powerful because because it gives meaning to this carbon footprint data. We can very quickly track a lineage for this consumption. We can apportion them to the right, element within the enterprise structure, the right site ID, the right master data, essentially, right? So we merge that, and then what we can produce is our first cut of operational insight or data that starts to tell an organization where the emissions are, and by site, by enterprise structure, by the different cost centers, etc. Right? So it's a very powerful outcome, if you may.
Yeah, I find it very interesting, and something for our listeners as well is to capitalize on the fact what Mani stated is this could be a part of your current architecture today. We're talking about how do you expand your footprint, maybe from an ecosystem standpoint, but leveraging that footprint to then attach it with your carbon footprint. And what I mean by that is customers today that are already running invoice management with Capture Core, you may be doing that today from an invoice management standpoint, from a sales order management standpoint, or potential other use cases. But to be able to leverage that same investment that you did with OpenText as a solution extension to SAP, you can now bridge your use case to define and solve for ESG reporting. So based off of that, as you can see here today, Auritas has created this solution built on the invoice management suite. So Mani, I think it would be helpful to tell our listeners, what does that solution consist of, right? You've walked through the process, you've walked through the architecture and the licenses and solutions we're leveraging and ordering to achieve this. But if you could tell everyone, what does our solution look like from a business outcome perspective, from a timeline perspective, and ultimately the results they're going to get from it?
Got it. Great. Some customers of ours have been savvy. They've actually been alive to the idea, and they reached out to us. Believe it or not, I had a call this morning. I kid you not, with a customer who's been trying to do this using some third-party solutions. And luckily, thankfully enough, we were able to make contact with this customer and make them aware of this opportunity, right? So to answer your question, and this is a customer that uses SAP and that uses OpenText, right? So they have all of the key ingredients. The platform's already there. The rest of the journey is very easy. And this is a global corporation. One of the main struggles, with the tool that they're using today, right? Not that it's external, is that they have challenges in reading and extracting information in a multitude of languages, right? Guess what? The OpenText capture, which is Gen AI backed, by the way, can deal with virtually every language that you can think of, right? We are already processing everything in the Western Latin character set, Hebrew, Arabic, and all the Far East languages. So it's global. The second thing is that because it's embedded close to the ERP process, it's a seamless handoff from AP to ESG reporting. We are very quickly able to identify the vendors that generate the carbon footprint invoices, right? We are very quickly able to, operationalize this through the solution. By the way, it's a fully built out solution that we've put out, as you said, right? Auritas has built it out. It's jointly being promoted actually along with OpenText. But it has all of the key elements here. Not only is it able to identify the invoices, extract the information meaningfully for all of these 12 different categories. It can then, because it's ERP embedded, it sees your ERP information, your master data. And therefore it's very, very easy and quick to merge that to the desired extent and get to that eventual business outcome. What's the business outcome? Is that ERP master data merged operational insight, right? We are literally able to do this in 2 to 3 months flat because it's such a pre-built solution. The installation has already been done. So we can get a customer from 0 to 100 in 2 to 3 months.
That's incredible. And one thing that I heard you say too is some of our customers may have been trying to solve for this with third-party solutions. Actually, just to report to everyone listening, one of our customers that just went live with this Auritas solution built on vendor invoice management actually just went through their first external audit. And being that OpenText is an SAP solution extension, the external auditor actually expedited the process because it is a native SAP solution. They actually reported back that it was the quickest audit that they've ever gone through, which is an overall great success, I would say, internally and externally for Auritas and the partnership. But kind of wrapping up here, Mani, for those customers and clients that are listening that are looking to start their ESG journey, what do you think the best place would be to kind of kick off, either from a discovery standpoint or at least just trying to learn a little bit more about the solution?
Yeah, look, contact us, of course, right? We have a good story to tell. It doesn't take long, right? We can do a live demonstration of the product in action in about 30 minutes. It's easy to grasp, easy to understand, and cost-wise, it's very incremental additional cost. It's leveraging what you've already invested in, so it's an additional use case for SAP OpenText. It's the right place to solve this problem, even though the ESG control tower, which is kind of something larger than all of this, that could be the umbrella solution that reports this, that could live even outside of ERP, right? But the key elements that feeds that control tower is so easily, I'll say, excavated and can be built to deliver those some of those outcomes that you need. So talk to us. We'll be happy to provide a quick demonstration and help you understand how quickly you can actually attain value. So call Auritas.
Thank you, Mani. And just for everyone listening, I hope the one main common thread you've gotten from this is you don't need to start from zero, right? Those listening that have already invested in invoice management and Capture Core, or even are looking at others, but how do you elongate your investment is what we're trying to get at. And how can you expand upon that investment to start solving for additional use cases? And since ESG reporting is on the forefront of everyone's mind currently, this is a great solution to really help solve for that compliance, really improve data quality, and just be better prepared for the future. So we want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope to be in contact soon to reduce everyone's carbon footprint. Thank you so much.